What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV, back here for another episode of the Premier League SPUR-SPECTIVE, which is the review show from Predict the Prem, where me and my brother go head-to-head in predicting Premier League outcomes. We have our scores on the doors as well, which is 173 to Sim, 193 to me. And the way the scoring works, it is 5 points for a completely correct scoreline, 1 point for a correct result. And the star man as well, is once you pick that man, you cannot pick them again. And it's 5 points for a goal, 3 points for an assist. And let's get on to the first game of the weekend, which was Liverpool against Chelsea, which finished 0-0. Sim went 3-2 to Liverpool. I went 1-1, so I get a point for this one. Wasn't the greatest game of football, but what I was most impressed with in this game is Mudryk when he came on. I thought he was a complete breath of fresh air and pretty much lived up to the hype when he came on.
Yeah, he was sharp. He was electric when he came in. He was wriggling in tight spaces. He was getting shots off. He was bringing other players into play. It was interesting because his very first touch, he overhits it and dribbles it out of play. And you're thinking, oh, God, what have Chelsea done here? Bought a dud. And then his second touch, he dribbles in between two players and gets a shot off. It's like, okay, this guy looks like a serious talent. You can see why they spent 100 million on him. He was the only bright spark in what was an otherwise dull game, which in a result which doesn't really help either Liverpool or Chelsea, given the fact they really both looking at top four. Chelsea still sitting in 10th, Liverpool in 9th, both 10 points outside the top four as things stand, albeit Liverpool do have a game in hand. But it's a result that will help neither team. And it was a very dull game in terms of quality. Both teams just looking like the out-of-form teams that they are right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I do kind of feel like Chelsea are going to grow more into this season with the new signings that they have made. I really believe in the signings that they have with Badshili at the back, Mudryk, João Felix. I really think they're going to turn it around. But Liverpool, I am worried about. Well, not personally worried about, but I'm worried for them because I think I just can't see them turning it around, to be honest.
Not without some investment in January. Or some players returning to top form. Right now, it's a struggle for them. Chelsea, they've made so many signings. I think that they're all very good signings individually. Whether it'll be next season where we see them all gel together or this season remains to be seen. But definitely some impressive business.
Yeah. Moving on to Bournemouth against Nottingham Forest, which finished 1-1 on the day. Both of us going for 1-0 to Forest, and a fairly even game here at the Vitality Stadium. And Bournemouth take the lead. Nottingham Forest get a late equaliser, but it was a very even game. And with the form of these two sides coming into it, anyone would have probably predicted a Forest win. But credit to Bournemouth for battling in this game.
Credit, yes, but these are the games they need to win if they're going to stay up. I don't think a draw is a good enough result for them. Forest will definitely be happier with the result. It keeps up their unbeaten form, four games unbeaten now in the Premier League, and away from home as well. Bournemouth, they got the goal. Jay Nanty with a really nice finish. Kiefer Moore could have had a second, but it blazed over the bar. But Forest always look likely to come back in this game. Gibbs White and Brennan Johnson are really starting to pick it up now for them. They're really starting to contribute in the final third, whereas early in the season they were kind of out of the game, ineffective. But Steve Cooper's got them playing now, and Brennan Johnson definitely starting to look a threat with each passing game. Got another assist again this week. But Bournemouth, if they're not winning these kind of games, I worry for them. I think they needed that collectivism. I guess they have made a signing in Jackson from Villarreal. Maybe that'll give them a bit more impetus going forward.
Fairly impressive signing, to be honest, for them.
It is a very good signing. So we'll see how he does. But they really need to start scoring regular goals if they're gonna. If they're really going to stand a chance of staying up in this league, because at the moment, even though they're not the easiest team to play against, but they're just not scoring enough goals. They're too easy to keep out. And then going the other way, you always fancy your chances to get a goal against them. So I would say it's good they stopped the rot of losses and also stopped the rot of not scoring. But a draw's not a good enough result in this kind of game.
No, it's not. And you got to say that they're most definitely the biggest favourites to go down at this stage. So they're going to have to change it around massively if they are going to stay up. Let's move on to Leicester against Brighton, which finished 2-2. And Sim went for 3-1. I went for 3-1, the exact same scoreline. And Brighton just couldn't get the win in this game. Credit to Leicester for scoring 2 goals and and stopping the rot as well for Leicester. But Brighton, on the massive form that they are on, they'll walk away from this game quite upset that they didn't take all 3 points. 2 assists from Estepinian, Mitoma with an absolutely sensational goal for Brighton, and it's Evan Ferguson, man. He keeps pulling out the goals. Every single game he seems to be coming on, scoring goals. Great young prospect that he's becoming. And for Leicester, it was Mark Albrighton and Harvey Barnes getting the goals, but Evan Ferguson coming on and saving them at the death.
Yeah, and do Brighton have their own Harry Kane on their hands at this point? Because he seems to be hitting the ground running whenever he gets minutes, or starts even. He seems to be doing something in the game. So very, very impressive for a teenager to be doing that. So he's doing very, very well. I think Brighton will be content with the point. I think given the run they're on, they probably would have gone there expecting the win. But with what their aims are this season, probably just a top half finish. Obviously, with the way they're positioned in the league, they'll be looking at the top 6, but I don't think finishing as outside the top 6 will be seen as a failure for them. And I think a point away from home against a team who are battling, it has to be said, battling relegation at the moment, isn't, especially being 2-1 down going to the latter stages, they'll probably take it. But having watched the game, they were unlucky, Brighton. I think Leicester scored against the run of play. That
chance from Solly March, man.
Yeah, he had a couple of chances, to be honest. That was one he blazed over the bar, cut back from Mitoma.
Yeah.
And then he had another one, which it forced a save out of the keeper. So they had chances to go 2-1 up when it was 1-1. They didn't take them. Leicester get a goal from a corner against one of play, and it looks like that they were going to get a unlikely victory, probably undeserved. But Brighton did get the late equaliser that their play did deserve, and they'll probably be unhappy with the way the game went in terms of result, because they probably deserved the win. But I think being 2-1 down, you probably take the point.
Let's move on to Southampton's against Aston Villa, which finished 1-0 to Aston Villa. Sim went for 1-1. I went for 2-1 to Villa in this game. And look, I think Southampton probably deserved more out of this game. Emi Martinez ended up being man of the match. They were having quite a few chances in this game, Southampton. But Aston Villa dug in there and took all 3 points.
Yeah, I think the game changed big time on a big VAR check, which was about 10 minutes or maybe 15 minutes to go. Ward-Prowse gets there's a cross comes in the box. What happened was I think it was Elianusi from Southampton. He's challenging with a Villa defender in the box, and his one of his studs catches one of the Villa defender's heels, and his boot kind of slightly comes off in the challenge. The ball then falls to Ward-Prowse. He shoots it, deflects into the back of the net. Villa think they've got the winner, but VAR notices that there's been a foul in the box, and that kind of swung the momentum. The goal got disallowed, and all of a sudden Villa ended the stronger after that moment, because it looked like, because when Southampton scored, it was deserved. It was kind of it was reward for their good work. I think throughout the game they were doing well, and then all of a sudden the goal gets ruled out, the momentum swings in Villa's favour, and then they end up getting the late winner with a Watkins header. So I think Southampton will take solace from the fact that the performances are definitely turning around for them, and they're starting to play a bit better, but must be frustrating. The goal gets ruled out, they then concede a late winner, and it's another loss for them. Still rooted at the bottom table. But Unai Emery, I think still no team has got more points than Unai, I think, since he took over, which is very impressive.
And their away form is really impressive. The teams that they've beaten, and another win going on here at St Mary's. So credit to Unai Emery and credit to Aston Villa. Let's move on to West Ham against Everton, which finished 2-0 to West Ham in a big game down at the bottom, which sealed Frank Lampard's fate as Everton manager. He has been sacked. Sim went for 2-1 to West Ham. I went for 1-0 to West Ham, so 1 point each. There, Jared Bowen back in the goals and back on form in this game, scoring 2 goals. And look, Everton are in deep trouble. It looks as like they're losing Anthony Gordon. We pipped them in the last minute to Dan Juma, and you're starting to think, like, where's a bit of, there's no light at the end of the tunnel for Everton at the moment.
Yeah, it's very difficult to see if you're an Everton fan. It was El Sakiko living up to his name yet again this season. This season's El Sakiko, and did end up with a sacking. And I think Lampard, it's just simply the way he's got his team playing right now is nowhere near good enough for. I know the squad isn't great, no doubt about it, but I think when you're Everton, I think you have to be seeing more on the pitch than what they're showing, and it was lackluster. West Ham weren't even that great. I watched the game as well. West Ham kind of got a 2-0 lead in second gear. They didn't have to work too hard for it. One of them was from a corner, and the second one was good work from Antonio on the right hand side, and beats, I think it was Mikalenko, gets across face goal and bone, scores a second. And I have to say, I don't think Everton even threatened to get back in this game throughout the whole second half. They were 2-0 down. They made a double substitution. I can't remember a shot on target they had throughout the whole second half. It was pitiful stuff. And when there's that, there seemed to be a lack of belief there that they were going to get back in that game. And even this is against a relegation rival where, you know, you'll have to fight tooth and nail to get outside the relegation zone. And they just didn't seem up for the fight. And it was very, very disappointing. And Lampard seemed a beaten man. And there you go. It cost him his job. People say, maybe rightly so, that he's not the biggest problem at Everton, and, you know, there's not much he could have done. But at the end of the day, he wasn't getting the results, and Everton can't sleepwalk themselves into a relegation. They had to do something, and they're not, you know, the board, Mashiri has put the club up for sale, surprisingly enough, over the last couple of days. But I feel like they needed a manager who's got more experience in relegation battles. And even as a player, Lampard didn't have that. So I feel like it's probably right to try and save themselves with the change.
Yeah, they do need to save themselves the change, but they need a succession plan, and it doesn't seem like they have one. They've been linked with the likes of Sean Dyche and Sam Allardyce and these kind of managers.
Yeah.
But to sack Lampard, you need to have someone lined up, because the games are coming thick and fast, and the longer they go without a manager, the more they're going to be sucked into this battle.
I read a report, I mean, I don't know how true it is, I read a report they're even considering having an interim manager like Leighton Baines up until the end of the season. It's like, well, you're just asking for relegation if you do that. I understand they needed to sack Lampard, but to do it without, I hate when clubs do this, like it's done a few times. They just sack a manager without a plan, and all of a sudden, they've got no manager lined up, and they don't know what they're doing. They're just scrambling around. And it's like, you have to have a plan in place when you sack him, and you can't just sack him on a whim. And Mashiri, interesting enough, apparently has said in his statement about putting the club up for sale that he has, on occasion, he admits he has bowed to fan pressure and sacked previous managers maybe quicker than he should have because the pressure was piling on them. And that's an interesting admission from him. But it first of all goes to show the power of some of the fans, but also goes to show that sometimes, a lot of the times, chairmen shouldn't always listen to fan pressure when things are going wrong, because it's not always the right course of action, especially if you don't have a plan in place. Yeah,
absolutely right. Let's move on to Crystal Palace against Newcastle. 0-0 on the day. Sim went 0-0, so he gets a big fat 5-pointer for this one. I went for 1-0 to Newcastle. And you know what? I'm feeling a bit hard done by, because it probably should have been 1-0 to Newcastle. I thought Newcastle were the better team on the day, deserved the victory. But credit for Palace for plugging in there. But it doesn't take away from the fact that Newcastle are struggling, man, to score goals. They really are struggling, and they need to find a way to get more goals on their side, because they're in danger of dropping out the top four, in my opinion.
Definitely. First of all, is this first 0-0 correct prediction on the Prem? Probably.
Could be, yeah.
I don't think anyone's correctly predicted 0-0 before, but they've drawn 3 of their last 4 games 0-0 now. I have seen the trend of the goals definitely drying up for Newcastle in recent weeks. Were they the better team? Probably. Did they do enough to win the game? Probably not. I don't remember too many chances, clear-cut chances they created. Albeit, I don't remember too many chances they conceded either. But I guess they've built their foundation this season on a very solid defence to be hard to beat. They've lost 1 game still at this stage of the season, which is extremely impressive. And you can't knock that. But when it comes to getting top 4, if the goals continue to dry up, then that will slip away, because these draws are starting to get hurtful. Albeit, I think there's a good chance maybe Isaac gets a run, and maybe that their fortunes can change, or even Anthony Gordon's coming in, and maybe they'll make some other business. So I think the goals will start to come again, but at the moment they are struggling to get the ball in the back of the net. And when it comes to top 4, that is a bit of a worry for Newcastle. But the fact that they're not losing means that is a positive. It means once they get things right again, they're going to start winning, because they're going to start scoring goals, and they're still going to have that solid foundation. So I think from a Newcastle point of view, slightly worried that the goals are dried up a bit, but you got to be happy with where the team's at and the fact that they've still got extremely solid defence. And I think the attack, they got good players there, so I'm sure it will sort itself out.
Yeah, in my opinion, like in terms of from a Spurs point of view, I think that we got to be targeting Newcastle as the kind of marker to get to, because I think out of Newcastle and Man United, I'm much more confident trying to catch Newcastle than maybe what Man United are showing this season.
Yeah, probably. Man United have really turned it around recently. I still reckon when European football comes back, and I do think there'll be some inconsistencies, but they are on great form at the moment. But look, we'll talk about Man United in a minute. But yeah, Newcastle do definitely seem the team to catch.
And Trippier, once again, man of the match on the day for Newcastle. Every single week, this guy is man of the match. It's incredible.
It's like a slap in the face after we were begging him to leave, and now it's a slap in the face to all of us.
It really is. But let's move on to Leeds against Brentford. Again, finished 0-0 at Ellen Road. Sim went 2-1 to Leeds. I went 2-1 to Brentford, and it finished 0-0. I didn't see much of this game, but I heard it was a warranted 0-0.
I think Leeds were the better team. I think they deserved it, to be honest. David Raya had a brilliant game. They really kept Brentford at arm's length. They didn't create too many chances. Leeds were the ones really pushing forward, and they were probably
one shot on target. Brentford.
Yeah, Leeds played pretty well throughout the game, and Mbeumo and Tony couldn't get involved. But it's another case of Leeds having a good performance, but not the result. It's happened a few times this season, and Jesse March has commented on that. And I think again, they didn't get the result their performance probably warranted, and it must be a big source of frustration if you're Jesse Marsh. Still just outside the relegation zone. And look, a draw against Brentford is not a bad result, but in the position they're in, they've got to start turning these performances into results if they're going to stay in this league.
It's not a bad result on the face of things when you're looking at what both teams have done this season, but when you're looking at where you are in the league and what performances you're putting in, I think it maybe is a bad result, because when you're on top against a team that are not one of the best teams in the league, in the position that you're in, you need to get those 3 points. So we'll have to see how it pans out for Leeds. But let's move on to Man City against Wolves. 3-0 on the day. Erling Haaland with yet another hat-trick in this Premier League season. If he carries on, he's on course, like 50 goals this season or something. It's crazy. Sim went 2-1 and I went 3-1, both to Manchester City. And it was a comfortable victory for Man City in the end.
Yeah, and Haaland didn't even have to do much for his goals. One penalty, one laid on a plate from Mahrez, and then the first one, I can't remember what the first one was for Erling Haaland, but I can't remember how
and he got taken off with like half an hour to go as well.
Yeah, he got taken off even before the hour mark, I think. So it was literally job done. It was a very routine victory. Wolves, to be fair, in the second half tried to get back in the game and threatened to score without really doing enough to do so. Sarabia, I think, made his debut and looked decent when he came off the bench, but wasn't enough. And Man City, it was always going to look like a Man City victory. But Haaland, people were saying he was struggling, but back amongst the goals. As you say, 25 goals now in the league this season after 20 games. So, yeah, he's on course for about 50 goals, which is absolute madness. The record at the moment is 33, so he's 8 away from the record at the moment with 20 games left. So he could break that in a couple of weeks. And
you're looking at Kane. Kane's on course for over 30 goals a season, and no one's talking about him.
Yeah, he's probably on course for one of if not his best ever goal scoring ever season, and he's not even touching Haaland. Haaland's 10 goals ahead of him, I think, or 9 goals ahead of him, which is ridiculous.
Arsenal against Manchester United, which finished 3-2 at the Emirates to Arsenal. Sim went for 2-2 and he nearly got the 5-pointer there, but seconds away for Nketiah getting that winner at the end. I went for 2-1 to Arsenal, so I get a point for this one. And look, as much as I want to say that Arsenal didn't deserve it, they did deserve it. And I think Man United were giving as good as they were, well, maybe not as good as they were getting, but they were giving quite well for a bit. Rashford scored a sensational goal. Lisandro Martinez was there to maybe pick up from a Ramsdale howler or error to get back level. But after the Man United goal at 2-2, Arsenal just literally just pressed, penned Man United into submission and got the well-deserved victory.
Yeah, I think it was a bit of the It was a bit of a game of two halves in a way. I think first half, Man United played really well. And they got the early lead through Marcus Rashford. Brilliant goal, by the way. Nutmegging a 25-yard effort into the corner. Fantastic finish from him. That obviously put Man United 1-0 up. And then Arsenal, I wouldn't say against run of play, but kind of a bit out of the blue. They got an equaliser in Nketiah after a good cross from, I think it was Granit Xhaka, equalised for Arsenal after they didn't really threaten to get to equalise that moment, but they did equalise fairly quickly, and that must have given them a lot of confidence. But a 1-1 going into half-time, Man United were well in the game, and some would argue probably the better team, but second half, it was all one-way traffic, and if anything, United got a goal completely against run of play when Martinez scored. Arsenal deservedly went 2-1 up, but before that, Martinez did equalise from a mistake from Ramsdale from the corner, but you have to say that last 15 minutes was so impressive from Arsenal. The way they penned Man United in, they didn't give Man United an inch for that last 15 minutes, and it was just like pressure, and it was only a matter of time before the pressure told, and it did in the 91st minute. And to be fair, if Man United would have held out for another few minutes, then it would have been an impressive defensive job. But because, to be fair, they were kind of holding, the backline was holding strong for a lot of for most of it, because De Gea didn't have to make too many saves. It was mostly just good block shots from the defenders. But when you're under that much pressure, that intense pressure, they pretty much played the whole 50 minutes inside their own 18-yard box. I don't remember a single touch in the Arsenal half for the last 15 minutes. So you got to give credit to Arsenal, and they probably deserve that goal. They deserve that goal in the 90th minute. And that was a massive goal when it comes to, battling for the title. When these things regularly going for you, like they seem to be for Arsenal, that gives you even more belief it's going to be your year. And I'm sure that belief is there now for them.
Yeah, 100%. The last game of the weekend was Fulham against Tottenham at Craven Cottage, which finished 1-0 to Spurs. Sim went 3-2. I went 2-1. So we both get a point on the board here. Again, pretty much a game of two halves. Fulham, I thought, were the better team in that first half, and Spurs getting a goal against the run of play. A brilliant goal at that right at the death in that first half, with Heung-min Son linking up with Harry Kane once again, and Harry Kane slotting it to equal Jimmy Greaves' record to become Tottenham's all-time leading goal scorer. And then the second half came, and I thought Spurs played much better, and I think that we ended up deserved winners, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think we kept Fulham at arm's length. For the first 25 minutes, again, similar story to Spurs this season, conceding lots of chances, playing quite deep. Lloris had to be called into action. But after that, after we got the goal, second half, I think we defended extremely well. We were the ones probably looking more likely to score. And it was probably a solid defensive, professional away performance. Wasn't eye-catching, wasn't brilliant. Still want improvements. But it was a start after the defensive calamities of the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, definitely. A much welcome clean sheet for Tottenham, that's for sure. And let's move on to the star men. It was a Brighton head-to-head, and Sim came out on top this week with Mitoma against Solly March. Mitoma with an absolutely sensational goal. Very Sonny-esque, in my opinion, for Brighton. And I went for Solly March, who had a couple of chances to score on the day, but didn't take his chances. So Simeon gets 5 points this week.
Unbelievable goal from Mitoma, you have to say. And I don't know if he's right-footed or left-footed, I can never tell.
I think he's both.
Seems to be both-footed, but on his right foot, cut inside, and unbelievable finish. He's on unbelievable form right now, Mitoma. So keep an eye out for him right now.
Yeah. So that finishes this week's Premier League Perspective. 186 to Sim, 199 to me. So edged a bit closer this week, Sim.
Cut it by 37 points.
Yeah, fairly respectable points tally this week for Sim. But we'll see what happens next week. Predict the Prem coming up. Not for a while now, actually. It's FA Cup this weekend. So we'll see you in a few weeks for Predict the Prem. But thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Like, subscribe and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.